Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Locke, and I'm one of the pastors here at Blue Valley, and it is so good to see everybody here this afternoon. If you walked in and did not receive a candle, will you please just simply raise your hand? And we have people in the back that will come and bring you one, because I know that is part of tonight, and we don't want to miss out on that. So they'll be by. Keep your hand up so that they see you, and they'll make sure to get you a candle. And if you're right here in the middle, it might be just a second, but they'll make sure they take care of you. So let me ask this: where are the kids in the room? Hold your hands up too, kids. Where are you at? All right, I see those hands. That's awesome. Now, what I want you to do right now is, on the count of three, I want you to whisper to the person next to you, "Merry Christmas." All right, you ready? 1, 2, 3. Man, that was great. That was wonderful. See, I love Christmas. I always have. But this year, for some reason, I had a hard time listening to Christmas music. Anybody out there with me? Hard time? No, nobody's out there with me. But I love Christmas music, probably like you guys. But I found myself turning it off more than turning it on. So one day I stopped to kind of reflect, why was that? I wrestled with my heart a bit, and I realized something. That it's all just become too familiar. It's the same songs about the same story. Derek's favorite song last year, "I Gave You My Heart." The very next day, you gave it away. But this year's going to be different. I'm giving it to somebody special. Kids, that's a really important history lesson right there. All right? It's the same songs we hear every year. But maybe it's this for me. See, my barber, the guy who cuts my hair, every time I sit in his chair, he, without fail, points out all the new gray hairs on my head. And he takes great joy in reminding me that I'm getting older. He's sitting right over there. But maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just getting old and crotchety. But here's why I bring all this up. I've learned that as we get older, whether you're 9 or 90, we start to think that we know everything that there is to know. And that happens especially with Christmas. We just heard Luke chapter 2 read. And maybe for some of us, we walked in, we just simply checked the boxes. Because we know all the people. We know Mary, and we know Joseph, we know the shepherds, we know the manger, we know the star. And we nod along because we've heard it all before. And let's be honest, because we've heard it before, we stop thinking deeply about it. We stop feeling the story, we stop letting it amaze us. It's lost all of its wonder. So what do? Well, each year at Christmas time, we try to bring that wonder back. We want Christmas to amaze us, and so we try to add meaning to it by making cookies together, or watching certain movies, or we buy matching pajamas, or we buy bigger and better gifts to place under the tree. All those things are good, and I love every single one of them. But when we do that, what ends up happening? Well, we end up burying the meaning of Christmas under that noise, under those traditions. And maybe you felt like me. Christmas feels a little crowded, a little noisy, a little rushed. And maybe like you walked into this room tonight hoping that God might cut through the noise and help you hear the story again with awe and wonder. And that's my prayer for us tonight. I don't want us to just walk out of here with warm, fuzzy feelings of Christmas Eve, but with a fresh sense of what God has done for us through Jesus. A sense of wonder, a sense of gratitude, a sense of love for God and one another. So kids in the room, can you use your imagination with me tonight? You think you can do that? Adults, you know what? We probably need to do this as well. It's good for us. So tonight, we want to do something a little bit different. We've already heard the story read, but now I want us to step into the story. And as we do that, I want us to notice just how amazing God's love truly is. I want us to imagine that we're not just hearing the story of Christmas for the first time, but I want us to hear it as God's story. So if you need to, close your eyes. Well, let's do this. Picture the stable. Picture the stable that night. Straw under your feet. Animals shifting softly. A single lamp maybe in the corner flickering. The smell of hay. And the quiet night. The quiet night air. And then you look and there's a tiny baby. Fragile and small. The Bible tells us that God chose to enter the world. Hold on a second. He chose? Not a palace, not with power, not with comfort, but as a baby. As a baby to teenage parents. Kids, answer this question. Can babies walk? No. Can babies talk? No. Can babies defend themselves or protect themselves? No. That means that the God who made the stars, the God who never sleeps, the God who commands angels, chose to need to be held. The God who could do anything chose to rest in his mother's arms. The God who can give orders to angel armies chose to cry in the middle of the night. I mean, that right there should stop us in our tracks. We don't need to do anything else tonight. We can pray and be done and just stop and worship and praise the holy God. But let's think this through. If God was coming to the world, surely we think he would have come as strong. He would have come as impressive. Surely he would have come in a way that would make sense to us. But he didn't. So let's try to wrap our minds around that a little bit. All right, everybody picture a door. A door, a strong, solid door, and it's locked, closed tight. And on one side is God. God is perfect. He's holy. He's loving. He's all full of his glory. And then on the other side is us. Tired, scared, broken, unsure. See, most people believe that this is how God works. God's on one side of the door, and we're on the other. And for most of human history, people assume that the door only worked one way. And I think many of us get stuck in this thinking. Well, if I behave well enough, if we're good enough, if I pray enough, or if I try a little bit harder, then maybe, just maybe, God would open the door and let us in. That's how religion often works. But Christmas tells us a completely different story. At Christmas, God doesn't stand on his side of the door and wait. No, God opens the door and he steps through and he comes to us. Even when there's no room in the inn. When the world wasn't ready, even when he wasn't welcomed, he still came. And that's the Christmas story. See, God didn't stay far away. No, he came close. So now, why did he do this? Was it just to give us a beautiful story and some Christmas music and some cards to hand out? Well, no. So let me ask you. Let me ask the kids. Kids, anybody here scared of the dark? Adults, come on, let's show them who's scared of the dark. All right, I'm in that group, right? Sometimes our room just feels really dark. Or we hear a noise. And many times we can't explain why we're scared, why we are full of fear, but you just know you don't feel safe. And here's the truth for kids and adults. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't the dark. No, it's wondering, is anybody with me? Am I all alone in this world? See, when kids are scared, they don't ask for a flashlight. They ask for a parent. Because what makes you feel safe isn't more light. It's knowing someone who loves you is near. And Christmas is God saying, you're not alone. Jesus was born so that we could know that God is with us. And you're safe with him. You have nothing to fear because he is with you. So how do we know this to be true? Well, it's because Christmas doesn't end in the stable. Even when Jesus was born as a baby, his life was already moving towards something bigger, giving himself for the people that he loved. He was wrapped in cloth and laid down as a baby. And then many years later, he would be wrapped in cloth and laid down again in a tomb. And when he gave his life on the cross, showing his love for everyone. So the story begins with a silent, dark night. And it reaches its greatest moment in the darkness of Jesus' death. Why is that? Well, because God's love doesn't stay safe. No, his love doesn't stay distant and far away from us. No, his love moves towards us. His love moves towards something that costs. It's like a parent jumping in front of danger to protect a child. That's the kind of love Jesus shows. And that same love came near in Bethlehem. That same love would later stretch out its arms on the cross to rescue us. And that's the heart of Christmas. God didn't just come to be with us. No, he came to give himself for us. He gave himself so that we don't have to live in fear, but that we can live with peace and joy and hope each and every day of our life, now and forever. So at Christmas, God is saying, I see you, I know you, and I've left heaven for you. And when you look to God and you trust him, you can rest in that. So how do we do that? Well, God is not Santa Claus. God doesn't need to check the list twice. He already knows that we are all on the naughty list. And trying harder and being better is not going to change what list you are on. Our only response at Christmas to the birth of Jesus is confessing with our mouth that Jesus is Lord and believing in our heart that God raised him from the dead. And the Bible clearly states, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And that's the gift of Christmas from our Heavenly Father. So before we rush out into the rest of Christmas Eve, before we dive into presents and the noise and the busy days ahead of us, can we take a moment and pause? Because the story that we just stepped into doesn't end with a word. No, it ends with an invitation. And so in just a moment, we're going to light candles together. And I don't want us to just think of this as a tradition, something that we do. It's a beautiful tradition. And I want us to see what it represents. See, because the candle that you hold is just one single flame. It's small, it's quiet, it's ordinary. But in a dark room, even a small light changes everything. And that's what God did at Christmas. He didn't flood us with blinding power. He entered quietly and humbly in the light and in the darkness. See, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Not a spotlight, not a flash, but a steady, faithful light that darkness cannot overcome. And here's what's so beautiful in our calling as Christ followers. The light is not meant to stay in one place. As one candle is lit, and then another, and then another, until all the darkness is pushed back. And it's pushed back not by force, but by shared light. And that's the Christmas story, that God came near, God brought light, and now through Christ, that light is shared. So as you light your candle this evening, I want you to hold it as a reminder that God came into your darkness, that you are not alone, and that hope has a name, and his name is Jesus. And if you've never given your life to him, I ask you to do this. As you receive the flame and your candle is lit, if you want to trust Jesus with your life, all you have to do is simply pray to him and let him know that you want to follow him. Do that tonight. And as we sing together, may this simple moment help us recover the wonder of Christmas, the awe that God came close to us. Let's pray.